privilege and honor to be able to get with you and to talk about a person who has profoundly influenced not only your life, my life, our families, our church, and this entire community. And I don't know of anybody who is more worthy to be honored than Colonel Fred Lacy.
Lieutenant Colonel Fred Lacy was born in Geneva, Alabama on April 4, 1931, to Irby and Minnie Lacy. Fred first came to Auburn to pursue a bachelor's in agricultural science from the Alabama Polytechnic Institute. He graduated in 1953 and went on to serve in the U.S. Army for 21 years, including stints in Europe, Vietnam, and Korea. Fred began his military service a year after his graduation as a second lieutenant in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Before his first deployment to Germany, Fred married his wife, Emily Christenberry Lacy, on July 4, 1954. He served with the 2nd Armored Division in Germany for 3 years before returning to Fort Sill in 1957 for training. He was promoted to captain in September 1960. In June 1961, Fred joined the 7th Infantry Division in Korea as an assistant G3. Fred and his brigade were responsible for defending the western half of the Korean demilitarized zone. Though a truce was in effect, North Korea was consistently probing to find weaknesses in U.S. defenses. Fred was responsible for planning patrols and curtailing the North Koreans' efforts. When his brigade was relieved of their responsibility, they were charged with planning and conducting an amphibious landing. Between his time in Korea and Vietnam, Fred attended Air Command and Staff College at Maxwell Air Force Base, where he graduated in the top 5% of his class. He earned a master's in international relations from Tulane and served 2 years in the Department of Army Staff at the Pentagon before being deployed to Vietnam in 1970.
And he was the senior advisor to a providence chief down in the Mekong Delta area and south of Saigon. And there had some very harrowing experiences, was almost killed one time in a helicopter he was flying in, and the enemy shot a weapon at him, a grenade launcher, and he saw it actually coming, but the grenade went behind the helicopter and exploded.
It was there that Fred was promoted to lieutenant colonel and earned one of the most coveted awards, the Combat Infantryman's Badge, an award that very few artillerymen have the privilege to wear. He also received the 2nd Bronze Star of his career for saving a man's life. Fred returned to the loveliest village on the plains in April 1971 and worked with the Auburn University ROTC. He and his wife Emily raised their 3 children, Cindy, Tricia, and Liz, in Auburn, and Emily served as a principal of Wrights Mill Road Elementary School for about 20 years. After retiring from the military in January 1975, Fred earned his Ph.D. in history from Auburn and served as a professor and department chair at Chattahoochee Valley Community College in Phoenix City until 1996.
Fred had such a love for this country that he said, I'm going to do something. Sure, I'll get a negative response, but it was right, I think during the Iraqi invasion, he said, I'm retired from the military, but I'm going to write the Army and let them know that I'm available if they want to bring me back to help in any way, that I love this country and I'm available. Beneath that uniform, deep in his heart, is a humility, a gentleness, and one of the deepest loves for God that I have ever seen in a person.
Fred is an active member of the Auburn United Methodist Church and has taught classes on the Bible for more than 60 years. In 2010, he published a history of the Bible, Discovering the Bible, a layman's history of the origins and preservations of the Holy Scriptures. He and Emily will celebrate their 64th anniversary in July and are now proud grandparents of 8 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild.
Just think what our country would be like if every person in our country was a patriot, just like Fred Lacy.
That's right. It would be a greater, because it's a wonderful country in which we live, but it would be greater.
Fred is an exemplary Auburn graduate, citizen, veteran, and we are honored to present him with this year's Distinguished Veterans Award.
I'm thankful for my granddad and for his service because it has taught me what it means to persevere and have patience, and I'm also thankful for his love for the Lord and all of his wisdom.
We are so proud of you. We're thankful for all the opportunities you've given us as a family. We love you.
When I think of Granddaddy, I think of him always coming to see us, even though we lived all around the world, and he always brought a little present with him. And then he always took me Coke floats, even though I wasn't always allowed to have them. And he always just tries to make everybody happy, and that just means a lot to me.
The word that comes to mind when I think about my grandfather is kind. He always extends kindness to his family and to really anyone that he meets.
My granddaddy has shown me what it's like to be a selfless member, both in the military and society, helping both the church and also the university in Auburn.
Growing up and having someone like Granddaddy in my life created many fond memories at an early age, and my favorite of these would definitely have to be him reading us Dr. Seuss right before bed and creating his own rhymes that rhymed with my name, especially Cannon Wren, and I know that I'll remember that for the rest of my life.
Colonel Lacy had numerous postings around the world to include post-World War II Germany. He was a nuclear qualified artilleryman, which is highly unusual. He was either the honor or distinguished graduate from every school he attended, from his time as the Artillery Basic School all the way to Air Force War College in Maxwell Air Force Base. He also was the recipient of numerous air medals for combat operations in Vietnam, as well as the Bronze Star awarded for the same operation. Colonel Lacy, as a artilleryman, is also the recipient of the Combat Infantry Badge for operations in Vietnam, also highly unusual.
My granddaddy has been serving people his entire life, whether that be through the military, our family, or the community. He's also told me what it means to be a servant of Christ, and I can't thank him enough for everything that he's done.
Well, Dad, 34 years ago, you allowed me to marry your middle daughter, your beautiful middle daughter, and I hope that you would make the same decision today. Not sure that you knew what you were getting into then, and Mom warned me that I wasn't sure what I was getting into. I hope you'd make the same decision. You've always let your faith be your compass in life, whether you've been led by men and the many men that you have led during your life. Your faith has been your compass. You've been admired by many, far and near. Thank you for your service, and I know today is a day for your recognition, but I know in your heart that you are thinking about the others that have served as well. Thank you for your service.
Parker, what's our word for granddaddy? Can you say happy?
Happy.
Good job.
I got the love of sports from my daddy. He was at every softball game while I was growing up, standing behind the backstop with bits of encouragement and words of advice. He was at every swim meet, cheering me on and checking my times. As I grew older and had children of my own, he loved to receive phone calls to hear about their different sporting events and how they were doing. But my favorite tradition with my daddy is the phone call after the Auburn win. It can be a basketball game, softball, baseball, football, it doesn't matter. As soon as the game is over, we race to call each other and be the first one to say War Eagle. We break the game down and talk about key players and all the plays. It's my favorite tradition, and I treasure these phone calls, and I always will. War Eagle, Daddy.
Daddy, I want to thank you for your service to our country. My entire childhood, you showed me what it is to put service before self. When it comes to you personally, I can't imagine a more fun and adventurous father to have. Everything from the yarns you used to tell us about the giant blues in the ocean and the needlefish that would sew us up, all the way to ziplining with us when you were 87 years old. I cannot believe what a wonderful zest for life you have and what a love for the Lord you have. I love you.
Hi, I'm Sydney, Colonel Lacy's oldest daughter. When I was growing up, we moved so much I was in a different school every year. Then in 1970, we moved to Auburn while Dad was in Vietnam. When he came home, he started teaching ROTC at Auburn, and I started high school. He promised me that I would finish the same high school that I started. In 1974, the Army wanted to move us again. Dad tried to negotiate all kinds of ways that we could stay in Auburn so that I could finish high school, but the answer was no. So in 1974, Dad retired, and in 1975, I graduated Auburn High School, and Dad was able to keep his promise. I am so proud to be Colonel Lacy's daughter.